The more I look into the Ebola outbreak and compare it to previous years, the more I see how much agencies, especially the C.D.C. and the World Health Organization, are either absolutely confused and have no idea how to treat this, or they are just making things up as they go to not cause a panic. Every single day I find more inconsistencies from what they're telling us and what is actually going on. And from what I'm seeing, it looks like the biggest thing that they are trying to hide, or they're very unsure about, is if this is airborne or not. I touched on this on my last video, and from what I see, that's the only thing that can make sense. But let's look at how the CDC has changed certain parts of its website, even within days of publishing it, and only changing certain wording. It doesn't make any sense. Although, there are some other things that we can take into consideration here, and I'm going to show you that. But I'm going to show you these inconsistencies that, they just can't really explain away. They don't make any sense. So let's take a look at that. So multiple times the CDC concludes that Ebola is absolutely not airborne. But let's take a look at what they said in 2014. While the CDC has concluded all Ebola virus species have displayed the ability to spread through airborne particles, aerosols, under research conditions, its materials assert this type of spread has not been documented among humans in a real-world setting, such as a hospital or household. That's not saying the same thing as saying it can't happen, or that airborne transmission is not happening. Well, exactly, and because we don't know what's going on. So why don't they just say it's possible that this is what's going on? They won't say it. At a Thursday press conference, CDC Director Tom Fearden avoided claiming that this strain of Ebola is not airborne. Rebecca Hammond, a voice of Nigerian, asked, "You just said the transmission of Ebola is through close contact, but it seems it's going beyond that. The name itself was derived from a river. Do you mean the not waterborne or airborne?" Because they also were saying that it wasn't waterborne, which doesn't make any sense, being that it came from a river. She stated simply, "My people are scared at the rate of which it's being transmitted and moving very fast. I would like to know how Ebola is contracted." Frieden's reply was that Ebola is not airborne, but it has not been proven to be airborne. He said, though there may be circumstances that it might have been spread through air in situations like intubation of a patient, putting a breathing tube in, that's never been proven. See, it's like they are mixing words and trying to make these possible situations that don't make any sense. And then we go down here where they got a statement from Monroe. The CDC's Monroe told those asking about the rate of infection among healthcare workers only that he didn't want to speculate. He expressed confidence in standard barrier nursing and infection control practices, but surely, if anyone could prevent transmission through these means, Sierra Leone's top Ebola doctor, a leading Liberian internist, and the head of an Ebola clinic would have been able to do so. Instead, they became infected. 2 of the 3 are now dead, and the 3rd remains in serious condition. Well, that is very strange. So it's obvious that they have no idea how this is spreading. So then we go to the CDC's own documents that were posted in 2014. And you go right here, and it explains how it is transmitted. And it talks about healthcare settings who have potential for exposure to patients and or infectious materials, including body substances, contaminated medical supplies and equipment, contaminated environmental surfaces, or aerosols generated during certain medical procedures. But 3 days prior to it saying this, it said contaminated air. Same exact paragraph. This is the Wayback Machine. If you don't know what that is, it is an archive, and it snaps, little pictures, so to speak, and you can go and see things that have been changed, or just different things like that. That's how we get a lot of information when we're doing research. Also, I thought was interesting that they took this entire part out where it says to wear the face mask and all of these things, where on the new one it just sends you to a link, when none of the other stuff sends you to a link. It actually writes out what you need to do in order to protect yourself. It doesn't make any sense. But like I was saying, there are other factors. Last year, Goldman Sachs asked in a biotech research report, is curing patients a sustainable business model? I'm sure you're thinking right now, who in the world says that? Well, it's Goldman Sachs. But this is how they all think. They essentially say, is it worth it to actually cure patients? The potential to deliver one-shot cures is one of the most attractive aspects of gene therapy, genetically engineered cell therapy, and gene editing. However, such treatments offer a very different outlook with regard to recurring revenue versus chronic therapies. If this doesn't make you cringe, I don't know what would. And people say that this is a conspiracy or something. Like, no, they would never do such a thing. Of course they do. And they're telling you right here. So that's what the analyst wrote in the note to clients on Tuesday. While this proposition carries tremendous value for patients and society, it could represent a challenge for genome medicine developers looking for sustained cash flow. So in other words, it would be amazing for people, but it really would suck for our pocketbooks. Richard cited Gilead Sciences' treatment for hepatitis C, which achieved a cure. They found a cure for hep C, and it was curing patients at a 90% rate. The company's U.S. sales for hep C treatments peaked at $12.5 billion in 2015. But, wow, it's been falling ever since. Goldman estimates the U.S. sales for these treatments will be less than $4 billion this year. That's sad. Aw. So, what he's pointing at is where the success of the Hep C franchise has gradually exhausted the available pool of treatable patients. Meaning, because they've cured them all, they're not going to have any more people to be able to give treatment to. And they're not going to have any Hep C patients giving it to other people to make them more patients. Wow. That's so horrific. And you can see that in studies like this. It is a double-stranded RNA-activated capsaicin oligomer. I have no idea. It is a broad-spectrum antiviral therapeutic that an MIT scientist came up with. And it seems to be having very promising results. It is curing essentially every virus that they've tested it on. And so what he did was, well, he didn't do it. Actually, some other people did it because he's a big nerdy science guy and didn't know anything about raising money. And so in order to get your product to market, you need to do more studies, obviously. But he needs more money for that. And I guess MIT's not paying him for that. Well, the government gave him a few dollars, a few $100,000. I don't even know if it was $100,000, honestly. And it had all positive results. All positive results. But they didn't continue funding that. They just kind of, like, whatever. And then, so they ran their own campaign. They only raised $60,000. Something that could end many viruses, including the flu, including dengue, many of them. I mean, there's a whole list of them. But, yeah, we can't be given money for that. But we can give money for bizarro things like this. This is how the government spends our money. The Pentagon was criticized in 2017 for spending $28 million on licensing fees for the lush green pattern of Afghan National Army uniforms. Since Afghanistan is 98% desert, the bright green seems like it would stand out, right? How about paying $5 million for cool guys to stop smoking and to advertise that they're no longer smoking? Yes, that really happened. How about spending $518,000 to give quails cocaine and watch their sex habits? Wow. To see if they have risky sex habits. How about hamsters fighting? For more than 20 years, Northwestern University researchers received National Institutes of Health money to watch hamsters fighting. The project reportedly received more than $3 million over the course of the project, and $306,000 in 2015 alone. Or what about all these old schools, firehouses, office buildings, all the government still owns and holds on to, about 770,000 buildings, which the maintenance adds up to about $1.7 billion every year. Printing documents no one reads. Let me see. So each member of Congress automatically receives a new copy every day, although you can find these on their website. It estimates about $1 million a year for just copies. How about to digitalize the Grateful Dead? $615,000. So many other ones. Senator Rand Paul does a yearly waste report, and it's so crazy. Let me see this one up here. So that first report that he put out was about shrimp running on a treadmill, which cost more than $1.5 million in 2017. The entire report can be downloaded from Rand Paul's office site, but he tweeted about some of the best examples of government waste, which he says totaled $144 million, enough to pave 1,000 miles of roadway. And these are just a handful of them. So the National Institutes of Health gave $874,000 over 6 years for researchers to study the habits of the quails. I just talked about that. USAID is spending as much as $18 million to support tourism in Egypt. How about the NIH spending $2.5 million to study daydreaming? Or the National Science Foundation spent $75,000 to blow leaf blowers at lizards. No joke. It's so insane. And so instead, I don't know if this treatment would work, or there's other ones that target the RNA, because that's the viruses. That's the hard thing about the viruses, especially these are the double-stranded RNA, and that's the hard thing about it. But instead of going after something promising like this, they spend their money on nonsense because, like Goldman Sachs said, cures aren't a sustainable business model. Y'all have a wonderful day, and please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.